Still there? I'm glad you've come with me so far. From this point, things may get a little strange. For what follows is my own report from the wild. First, I'll tell you about what I discovered in the wildness of Japan. Second, I'll relate what I found in the wildness of the desert. Both accounts are real. I hope you'll stick with me a little further. I promise you nothing in return. The Path of Wildness. Mustering the courage to live. Persons who have wandered or been expelled out of the common track of things, even were it for a better system, desire nothing so much as to be led back. They shiver in their loneliness, be it on a mountaintop or in a dungeon. Nathaniel Hawthorne. This chapter was originally composed in Japan, and before I began going alone in earnest. I wrote The Path of Wildness in response to the many young people who contacted me during my time as a Japan-based YouTube content creator. Young people dreaming of Japan, yet unable to muster the courage or resources to make their dream real, and writing to ask me how this trick was done, and what advice I could offer to help them get away from whatever unsatisfactory life they were living. I responded with The Path of Wildness, which is a metaphor for courage and action, and a reminder of the risk of waiting too long, and a challenge and method for getting unstuck. The Path of Wildness. As I near 50, I'm becoming increasingly aware that my situation is like a man holding his breath in a sealed container of water, with less than a minute of consciousness remaining. Now is the time to scratch something meaningful on the wall, to share what I have seen and learned. The path of wildness is easy to find. The course of a stream, leaves blown in the wind, a beast's track through the brush, and the direction of our first inclination. The path of wildness is an answer and response to a prescribed way of life which may leave some individuals with the sense that their living is little more than a series of predetermined, step-like episodes between birth and death. The stages of living between these events, childhood, adolescence, adulthood, parenthood, and senior, are themselves natural and in accord with the needs of the species and most individuals. Many find satisfaction in living this course, and to these individuals I have little to say. Others, though, long for something more, something innate, genetic, and seemingly calling. Adventure and change can give a degree of satisfaction and relief, yet even these may seem too tame, and the results often only temporary. To those who feel drawn to something beyond the entertainment and stimulation of senses, I offer a walk along the path of wildness. Don't bother penciling the event in your schedule, preparing a pack with goodies and supplies, or even inviting a friend along. For this experience is along the course of your first inclination, and you must surely always go alone. The problem: life has no apparent meaning. My adventure videos on YouTube have produced a steady stream of email from people who tell me about the dreams they can't quite bring themselves to live, and their fear of being alone and feeling their lives don't matter. However, nobody ever says it that way, and instead they cloak these worries as simple life anxieties, or blame their trepidation and inaction on various personal or familial infirmities and challenges. They do this to convince themselves these simple facts are the true cause of their churning worry and hesitation. They attempt to avoid a deeper fear, a hidden threat which is more real and threatening to a quality of life than any surface-level anxiety. It's a demon of sorts, lurking in the shadows of conscious thought, peeking with knowing eyes in the direction of our mortality, pointing a crooked finger at the hazy terminal point of our life, while offering a suggestive grin that nothing will be found beyond. This thought, along with the weighty implication it bears, that life is without inherent meaning, appears to be the more real and tactile cause of the concern I sometimes read in the words of those who write to me. I never point this out, though, as I suspect they prefer I go along with their bluff, and humor them with a response in keeping with their stated concern. Reality, after all, can be a fearful thing to face. However, I will now attempt a more honest answer, reflective of my own life experience and sincere interaction with others. The light and living we now know offers a stark contrast to the nothingness we intuitively sense existed before our birth, and the same nothingness we fear a return to after life is done. In fact, this fear is far worse than a return to nothingness, as we are each capable of holding a vision of hell in our minds more terrible and real than the worst damnation preached from any austere and authoritative pulpit. This greater terror is our sense that the universe can get along without us, that our life and living are of little real consequence in any way, and that our best efforts will account for little beyond the temporary comfort given to a handful of individuals we share and interact with before death takes us away utterly, permanently, and forever. This is the real terror so many struggle to avoid, which reason and honest inquiry coldly reveal as true. An abject fear of ultimate insignificance and meaninglessness in the face of the curious fact of temporary life in an otherwise lifeless universe. I don't understand why the thought of death, real death, absolute death, with no chance of recovery, salvation, or continuation, is more tolerable to some than others. However, I suspect this acceptance may relate to some level of comfort and familiarity with being alone. Not that anyone will be alone after death, as even the concept of alone then would be wishful thinking. Nevertheless, during life, if we can abide our own company for extended periods of time, then the thought of being without others, or ourselves even, after death, may somehow become more palpable and acceptable, a more familiar, intangible something and somewhere, less feared as accepted, or perhaps resigned to. To such a person, a life without absolute meaning may be acceptable. Days, months, and years of striving to no absolute end all right, and nothing to fear. To such an individual, the journey itself becomes its own purpose, the momentary satisfaction and good feelings connected with virtue their own worthy end, where virtue is defined simply as the pursuit of objective well-being for ourselves and others. Death, then, offers no transition, but is seen as a simple final stop, a period, an ending of effort, and of striving, and of reflection towards understanding, which yields nothing more than transitory and ultimately meaningless gain to ourselves and those to follow. But is this a bad thing? If yes, then it's understandable that many protest, recoil, and fly from such thoughts. But if no, then our breathing can relax as we measure each inhalation as one of the few we get, and use the fuel of this living to move our body and activate our brain in such a way as to create our own meaning in these passing moments, and to pursue objective goodness in the willful expression of perceived past ends. So what words can I say to those who write to me, asking my thoughts regarding their worldly dilemmas, when my suspicion tells me their real concern is actually a fear of their own unimportance and the utter finality of death? In most cases, I will engage their most direct questions and give the best answer and suggestion I can, given my untrained and uncredentialed qualifications. I wish, though, that I could speak to them more plainly and tell them that their deeper fears are real, and then ask them to explain their terror for my own benefit, and then hear my claims, which I hope may benefit them. Perhaps then we could both gain from a more honest and humane inquiry and inquisition into facts than any civilized, restrained, or judicial discourse could provide. For my part, I am now prepared to lay my humble case before any who may care to hear. opportunity, available light. Mind is an instantiation of consciousness, formed of energy organized within the brain along pathways designed of genetics and molded through the unique living of each individual. There is no soul in the sense of anything transcendental or eternal. The fact that our materials and energy are everlasting, having been used by others before us and destined for use by the yet unborn, is testament to the fact that our person is temporary and ephemeral. We are, individually and collectively, a brief, dim, and fast-fading spark and flash of material and energy in the darkening night of the universe. In this fact, we discover both our dilemma and great potential, the challenge being to remain upright in the face of our utter fleeting insignificance, while engaging whatever meek will we can muster towards observation, reflection, and art, while the light and sound of the universe wash across our senses. Without apparent purpose, we are left to decide for ourselves whatever meaning or significance should guide our days and actions. This is the great dilemma of the individual, which demands forthright acceptance of the facts of the observable universe and withholds any complete explanation or guidance. You must stand alone. You must recognize your solitude. You must hold yourself upright despite unstable footing and the approach of death. You must withstand the awful winds growing stronger and control your trembling hands while strange howling emanates from the wilder places and no trail or trodden path indicates the direction of safety. From here, if you can quiet the heart and gain control of your senses, overcome or learn to tolerate feelings of isolation, loneliness, and fear, then you will be prepared to make your own one-way path through the wild, to step where the weeds are tangled and small, biting creatures lurk with hairy legs, slicing jaws, and venomous sting. This is your path to follow, a truly dangerous and terrifying route none has ever trod or may ever again follow. The light is faint now, and growing fainter as the evening and night of your days grows near. Follow the dusk and note the sights. Speak of what you see. Describe your world in writing or painting or photography or spoken word. Poetry especially is a natural and well-suited vehicle to capture this ever-declining experience. Walk your path and observe, and then tell the story of your own brief, available light. Health. Exercise and eating well. Your good philosophy depends upon your body, which relies upon your health, which rests upon the choices you make as to exercise and what you eat and drink. Devote some time early in life to an understanding of what makes good bodies, and then take care of yourself accordingly. What follows is a summary of my own imperfect exercise and diet solutions. I exercise daily. However, my exercise routine is light, easy, and requires little time. My base workout is a 15-minute pool swim. My swimming style is very low impact. I do a gentle breaststroke for 5 laps, and another 5 laps backwards breaststroke, alternating these two styles between each lap. The backwards breaststroke is something a swim instructor taught me and involves simply resting face up on the water like you would do with a conventional backstroke, though instead of reaching back over your head to do a reverse crawl, simply lift your arms to your sides while keeping your arms in the water, before then stretching out your arms to give a nice stroke until your hands are again at your waist and your arms parallel to your body. This stroke takes a little practice, but when you've got it down, the process is easy. This swim is low impact and very relaxing, as you can look up at the sky while gliding gently through the water. I especially enjoy this swim in the evening at sundown, when I can watch the first stars twinkle into view as the azure Southern California sky fades to black. When enjoying this backwards breaststroke, just beware you don't bang your head on the far end of the pool as your mind floats off with the clouds. As mentioned, my swim is my base exercise, and I do this every day. However, I also enjoy walking to provide a lower body workout. To this end, I typically walk between 2 and 4 miles daily, either spread out over several small walks like a fast mile during my breaks at work, or one very long walk at the start or end of the day. If for whatever reason I need to skip some exercise, it will be my walk, as the swims are not optional and can only be missed for reasons such as illness or lack of access to a pool. Rain or cold weather are no good reason to not swim. Kurt's Imperfect Diet, but much better than what I was doing before. 5 a.m. Wake up and drink a glass of water. 5:15 a.m. Shave, shower, and then drink a blended vegetable smoothie made of kale, spinach, broccoli, carrot, beets, lots of this. Note, I blend 4 glasses of this mixture ahead of time, which I keep in the fridge. I don't add anything to the smoothie other than the above ingredients and a little water or lemon juice to help get the blending started. 5:30 a.m. Single large fried egg with a slice of buttered whole wheat toast, which I share with the dog while watching the news on TV. 8 a.m. Large mixed salad, same ingredients used in the smoothie, but with 2 handfuls of nuts and dried berry trail mix. I sometimes use lemon juice for dressing. 11:30 a.m. Bowl of homemade chili with a slice of whole wheat bread. I make a huge vat of chili every other Sunday, which I then portion out during the weeks to follow. The chili consists simply of a variety of beans and lots of finely chopped veggies. I season with a tablespoon of cumin and another tablespoon of chili powder. 3 p.m. Small bowl of lightly salted popcorn as a midday snack. I pop a week's worth of popcorn on Sunday nights, which I then store in my cubicle at work. An alternative to the popcorn are a few slices of unsulfured and unsweetened dried mango. Over time, the mango has almost come to replace the popcorn. 6 p.m. Enjoy another smoothie, same as above. 8 p.m. Prepare and enjoy a healthy dinner. I'm lucky as my wife is an excellent cook, and she makes outstanding Japanese meals for our dinner. I eat as much as I like of whatever she makes, which is always good and healthy, and satisfies whatever want of gluttony may linger at the end of the day. This menu is my own and reflects my limited sensibility regarding taste. I am sure that someone more adept in the kitchen might find better and more satisfying alternatives. Of key importance here is the absence of processed foods, sugary drinks, or excessive sweets of any sort. I do allow myself an occasional fast food meal with my family, and an infrequent indulgence in salty snacks such as chips or sweet desserts like a cookie or a piece of candy. Popcorn at the movies is a must, as well as a few other simple and periodic indulgences which help to give my life spice and interest, without taking away too much from my efforts at eating well. As for drinks, I limit my intake of coffee to no more than 2 cups a day, 3 if I'm writing, and I try to avoid fruit juice, too much sugar, and sodas. A beer or glass of wine are fine in the evening, though these seem to hold less appeal for me with each passing year. Starbucks is a must. My favorite is a grande-sized extra hot mocha with 2 pumps of syrup and whipped cream. After all, everyone's gotta have an indulgence or two to punctuate the serious and difficult work of living well. I occasionally enjoy this particular treat in the evening, after work, when I sit down to answer my personal email, as I find the sugar caffeine boost to be a nice stimulation to my improved human response. I can't emphasize enough how important I found diet to be in the pursuit of a happy balanced life. I was 47 years old when I developed this diet, and sadly spent so many years feeling tired, anxious, irritable, unproductive, and downright unhappy, before I learned the very common sense fact that what I ate and drank and how much I moved impact greatly the biochemistry of my body and mind. If you choose to attempt only one aspect of my proposals in this book, then I recommend the adoption of a healthy diet and light program of exercise as the thing to do. Action: the Path of Wildness. Once healthy and in a position of understanding regarding the possible deeper fear and trial which makes life such a challenge to those who wish to live a meaningful life, as well as peace of mind when thinking of what apparently doesn't follow when life is through, You may then be ready to act in the direction of wisdom. Indeed, you may be prepared to rise to your full stature as a man or woman of reason, to apply this faculty towards the higher, perhaps seemingly more worthy acts of a well-lived life. This, then, is the time to step upon the path of wildness. The path of wildness is easy to find. The course of a stream, leaves blown in the brush, leaves blown in the wind, a beast tracked through the brush, and the direction of our first inclination. Do not mistake the concepts of wilderness and wildness, which are related yet distinct terms. Wilderness is a place commonly regarded as devoid of most human influence. Stretches of desert in the American West, the far reaches of the Arctic and Antarctic, and most areas of the Earth's oceans are good examples of wilderness. Few such places on Earth remain utterly untouched by humanity, though many are nevertheless quite wild, and capture the spirit and essence of regions where humans are more alien than familiar. Wildness, on the other hand, is the landscape of freedom. Wildness is less a place and more a region of uncertainty, risk, and very real danger. Wildness is a feature of wilderness, though it is entirely possible for a well-trained, outfitted, and prepared human to enter wilderness without venturing very far into wildness. However, those who step into wildness may do so without ever leaving their home. In fact, they may enter wildness from the comfort of their recliner, or in the company of friends and family. Though in practice, wildness is most easily accessed through wilderness, which is one of the reasons I have spent so much of my life alone in the outdoors. Why should someone venture into wildness? Why risk the danger, isolation, and fatigue of exploring alone, even among others, where chance or bad choices may leave you crippled or mortally wounded? There are several benefits which vary in degree, depending upon the character and interest of the explorer, though one benefit is of special use to all, as it grants to the user a most useful skill and habit, and which, through training, can transform the timid, fearful, and meek into brave, spirited explorers. That quality is simply the character of courage in the face of the unknown, and a willingness to step boldly into seemingly dangerous regions of ignorance and uncertainty, to confront our weakness and shortcomings in open field, where neither can hide and must instead be viewed for what they really are, and once surveyed, then likely dismissed as unworthy intimidators, whom we order to stand aside as we stride past into the deeper darkness and cold. Not pride nor unwholesome confidence shall replace these fears, as these too cannot fail to fall away during our struggle through the wild places. Indeed, most superfluous human traits are vulnerable to being lost along the way, as the close-cutting branches, vines, and thorns pull away everything which sticks out from our person, and which is not essential to our truer character and inner strength. This is the singular gain and ambition of movement along the path of wildness, to wear away our excess, refine our better spirit, and help us develop and maintain the courage necessary to live well, as long as the light continues to shine in our eyes. The path of wildness is easy to find. The course of a stream, leaves blown in the wind, a beast's track through the brush, and the direction of our first inclination. I've described the path with the above words deliberately in order to leave clues in the commonplace experience of nature which are easy enough to follow, and as a simple training of sorts for the more challenging foray of trust in our personal instinct. I have a reason for relying on instinct, though I understand that instinct is not always right, and in fact may often be quite wrong and dangerous. Nevertheless, despite the risks, instinct is something we all seemingly have, and a sense we can start with when doubt and uncertainty threaten to immobilize our movement. There are times for rest and times for action, and most of us can easily sense when change is needed, though sometimes we lack the will or conviction to make the first step. It is at times such as this that I recommend moving boldly onto the path of wildness. This is done by probing our immediate senses for a hint of which way to go. And as long as the urging does not cause us to walk over a cliff in our first steps, steps and cliffs are, of course, figurative in many cases, then we should lift our foot and begin moving, or lift our will and push forward with thought, resolve, voice, interaction, or whatever form of human living might be involved. We move, we start, we have direction. It may not be the best direction, but courageous movement away from irrational fear or unwarranted timidity is often its own reward, and course correction can usually be made once we are underway. Once upon the path, the brave explorer should expect two things: danger and treasure. The first is very real and may wound, cripple, or even kill. Expect to emerge from your foray bleeding, lame, and perhaps a bit deranged for the experience. Yet a wholesome perspective might view such damage as nothing more than the expected price of discovering treasure where none like you has ever ventured. New explorers may hope and likely succeed in carrying away fresh wealth in the form of possessions, status, or acclaim from the lonely wild lands. These can indeed be had, in abundance in fact, though the glitter and sparkle of such tangible gain may appear as rust to those who go still further in search of the intangible treasures of mind and experience. These brave individuals will most likely return from their ventures exhausted to the point of collapse, pale with blood loss, and slightly mad from the close proximity they achieved to the source of the terrifying howling which can only be heard in the most extreme frontiers of dark and bleak wildness. Their pockets will certainly be torn and empty, and they may be unable to speak clearly of the wonders they've seen, though this is less due to any defect in the speaker's voice, and more commonly is a result of the hearer's excess comfort and certainty, which blocks the ears to truth as surely as beeswax. I recommend applauding anyone who returns alone from the wild lands, whether they bear treasure in both arms, or gleaming ear to ear within the broad expanse of a blessed mad smile. Do this, for each is a person of courage, someone who is broken clean of the quicksand of complacency and fear, and who is exercising those most rare and critical faculties of the human species: courage, freedom, and autonomy. But remember also that some who step upon the path will never return. Some will become lost, others will die. Still more may give up and return by some secret way to rejoin those who, in fear, remain huddled together in warmth and comfort, and possibly some degree of lifelong despair. These are the things you can expect upon the path of wildness. Go then when you feel lost. Step fast when you suspect your confusion or hesitancy are heeding some unworthy instinct and are born of the fear of suffering and not suffering itself. Move swiftly now in the direction of your first instinct. Call your best critical faculties to the fore and demand they guide your every footfall. Expect to tire and fall. Be ready to suffer. Understand that you may die, though know also that along the way, with every step and action, you are living the truest, most noble, and worthy venture of your life. Result: creating meaning. Those who venture upon the path of wildness will find a meaning of sorts in the energy, joy, and experience of living a life of courage, a life of periodic misstep, mistake, and failure, tempered with breakthrough discovery, and understanding. Taken together, these qualities cause life to acquire a depth and character which is humbling, satisfying, and reassuring. Our living becomes a beautiful sum of many parts, sour, sweet, bitter, raw, and savory. A delicious banquet of days which fills our mind like a feast fills our stomach, and gives us pause along the way, and in the end to rest in sated comfort at the fullness of our life. Notes from my Muse. I wrote the following verses during an early period of inspiration from my Muse, while still living in Japan and under the influence of the green, lush, watery, and very wild and geologically young mountains of the Japan Southern Alps. The words and phrases here are much simpler than what comes to me now in the desert, conveying less my thoughts about the great indifference, which I had not yet recognized in nature, and more simply my paradoxical understanding that there may be no living after life is done, and that the universe holds no precious mandate for our lives other than to simply stay alive as long as we can, and perhaps to pass our genes into another generation. The words below were originally augmented with images, which you can see at the web address in entry 7 of the book's appendix. No dragons here, only darkness. A simple human purpose, to ask and answer questions. No more purpose than to outlive ourselves, and then really not even that. I stand alone in the cold, confused, lost yet content. Avoid excess certainty. Erect no edifice you're not willing to destroy. Biology informs me I'm corrupt and degenerate. The howling on Mount Wildness beckons with fear. Ignorance is my constant companion, ever at my ear, whispering nothing. Fearful musings are best. The howling always comes from further than you are willing to go. I don't fear being wrong. I fear believing I'm right. The universe only ever offers so much raw entertainment. At some point, we must begin to improvise. The improbable palette of silence raises color and tone from nothing. Death is comprehensible. That's why we hide. Your own face is fearful here. Every step, a triumph of will. Meditate too long, and the way is lost. There's no need to venture outside to explore in wild places. Curiosity, reason, instinct, and courage are the sole necessities of adventure. Mount Wildness is a place more terrifying than fear, more remote than the unknown, for it is both. Making an adventure of living. There are no fresh starts, only new steps. There are no bridges here where streams are cold and fast. Mount Wildness is the landscape of fear, a truly dangerous place. There's a woodsman's cabin on the near slope of Mount Wildness, abandoned many years. Go alone, and any road can become a path. After a certain point, we all begin to dissolve. The blessing of becoming lost. Ordinary light becomes strange, and stranger still. Innocence renders the initial step unnecessary, for youthful movement is from the first intuitive, earnest, and seemingly irrevocable. Sometimes go where you do not want to go. Mount Wildness is a dark place, full of light. If you fear dark places, then stay where you are. Otherwise come, where none can be your guide. Let wildness guide, never trust it to lead, lest you never return. Move or stop if you are so inclined. Have courage for either action. The Map of Indecision. Any road can become the path. Time and distance must always impart change. Too long or far, and friends become strangers. Longer still, foreign, and longer yet, alien. The features on your face trace the course of the path. Attitude coupled with action cause the path to appear. Push into the haze. Expect nothing more than an opportunity to become lost. Faces become strange, too long on the path. Get busy before the curtain starts to fall. One step and you're on the path. Precedence is abhorrent to those upon the path. Those who stare very long at the light must surely go blind. Either course will do. The light is not an end. Companionship is a warm distraction. The path is outside, though not always outdoors. Tunnels aren't dark enough. Find another way. The path runs through the machine. Bridges aren't real. Find another way. A single step is sufficient. The way is clearer still under cover of night. Keep walking. The sun is setting after all. It's good to work alongside your humility and share the excess weight of pride with our only true and honest companion. When I was 18, ideas flashed past my consciousness too fast and fleeting to catch or even properly apprehend. At 28, I squeezed them from my mind with crayons and loud music, raw, textured notions, wholly adolescent and shaped like cliché. 38 allowed no time for such nonsense. 48 finds the ideas returned, though now I'm too tired and fed up to attempt to lead, and instead follow meekly wherever the sunlight moves, seeking warmth and thoughtful respite in whatever time remains. Instilling fear and the suspension of critical thinking are the methods of those who themselves fear and refuse to think. Refugees of reason huddled in the dark, begging company and offering stale sustenance if only you'll acquiesce. Stationary strides are longest. Only individuals can have courage, for the group can never truly be brave. If you ever doubt your way and question right or left, choose the darker, dense, and overgrown route, for this is where your ignorance is thick, and where passage will surely come at a price. For a time in my 20s I didn't wear shoes. It was hard at first, though my feet soon toughened and I walked with ease over every surface, without discernible wear and feeling everything. I wonder what might become of my consciousness should I give up my learned conventions of thought and trod treadless across the landscape of mind. Wildness is found wherever courage provokes another step. Moving at the pace of interest, we soon arrive. To discover and engage in art is to spend a lifetime upon the path. The path of wildness is a solution for those not seeking escape. It's better to remain alone in your room than with another in the wild. The slant of sunlight and shadow also mark the way. Expect curves upon the path. Only life can traverse the path. The path of wildness is a hiking philosophy and a theory of adventure. I'd offer my hand as guide, only then we'd lose our way. Shadows lie along the path. Shadows point the way. The darker the better. The path of wildness is purely secular and in no way spiritual. Biology is the defining and controlling factor. There is no sentience guiding our steps, and save perhaps the collective experience encoded in our genes. The path of wildness is largely irrelevant to a civilized mind. By this I mean that the willful thoughts and guided actions necessary to become and remain civilized are not always in keeping with a pathway oriented along the more intuitive nudgings of our first inclination. Though we may at times perceive the path, we are perhaps less inclined or able to step or remain very alone along its uncertain course, though this can always be achieved if the way is within our mind only, and we are able and willing to seek some haven from distraction for the duration of our wanted journey. Thoughts grow feral on the path of wildness, linger long, utterly wild. I expect to die here, and soon. I'd like to share with you a great recipe for solitude. Simply talk, act, think, or believe unlike others. Beware the far side of Mount Wildness, where our words become babble. The only streams here are cold, fast, and treacherous. There's a howling on the mountain, something worthy of fear. I fear no social circumstance, for I've been to Mount Wildness. There's a howling in the darker brush, the old shack at the end of the road. To walk the path is to adventure on life, making life into an adventure. The frontier of relevance. Any road can become a path if your step is resolute and your thoughts quite alone. You and I are dissolving day by day. Dissolution is genetic, bodily, and seemingly essential. Do, make, and say what you must before everything turns to sand. There's a sea below Mount Wildness. A howling thing roams the woods, and a woodsman's cottage on the near slope. I'd rather not know by instinct without a thread of honest reflection. Trails are courses. What trails do you follow? What paths do you blaze? Honest virtue requires no accolade. Suppress or ignore appetite. We're all crippled and suffering. Hesitate long, and the path will be gone. Practice your art. Paths are formed by instinct, trails by consensus. I'm making a sign on the frontier of Mount Wildness. My hope is that it will help keep travelers safe, but not too safe. The darkness is repelled by courage. Step towards it and it moves away, though one day it will not. Return by another way, an unknown way. The course of your first inclination is nothing more than a catalyst to action. They're all dying words. Make them count. An investment in relevance. Play a bit longer outdoors before you at last must go in. Abandoned paths everywhere you look. The Path of Wildness theme. Fear and courage. Action, the path. A willingness to suffer and become lost. Alone. Immediacy. Intuition. Acknowledging death. Fast movement hinders progress. Sanction is petty compensation for a lifetime upon the straight and narrow. You are not on the path if the way is very easy for very long. The most fearful thing is the distant howling. The path is fearful and dark. Failure is tolerable. Light your own way up the slopes of Mount Wildness, where the dawn never comes. The random and ordered patterns of entropy are beautiful when we can overcome our tidiness. Birds always fly along the path. Leaves always blow along the path. If you are ever uncertain how to start, simply follow the leaves and tread in the direction of bird flight. father and son can walk the path, just never together. The surest sign you've left the path is when you meet another along the way. The path of wildness is easy to find. The course of a stream, leaves blown in the wind, a beast's track through the brush, and the direction of our first inclination.